Hi, I'm Tina, and I'm so glad you found your way here today. So, this is the beginning of something that I've been working on for a very long time. It's a journey through the Yoga Sutras, these ancient teachings that are filled with wisdom. But more than that, it's a journey through life. I'm calling it Hanging On by a Thread. So, there was a time in my life when someone would ask me, "How are you doing?" Or, "How do you always seem like you have it all together?" And I would almost jokingly say, "Oh, I'm just hanging on by a thread." And I would use it casually and lightly as a way to cope with the pressure, the anxiety, the overwhelm, and that constant feeling that everything could unravel at any moment. I didn't realize then how meaningful that thread would become. So the first sutra of the Yoga Sutras begins like this: Atta Yoga Anushanam. Now the teachings of yoga begin. That word now isn't just a beginning, it implies that something came before it, a life lived, experiences gathered, and patterns repeated. And for many of us, a moment where something begins to break. In 2004, my life looked pretty much the way it was supposed to. I had stability, a home, a family, all the things, but internally, I was unraveling. So, this overwhelm and anxiety had taken hold of my life in ways that I couldn't really understand. I was constantly trying to control everything around me and trying to live up to this image of what I thought my life should be. And no matter what I did, no matter how I tried, no matter what I achieved, I could never create that peace or sense of happiness that I was searching for. Then my body started speaking to me. All these physical symptoms that convinced me that I was dying. I thought something was seriously wrong. And I convinced myself that I wouldn't be able to see my children grow up. So, doctor after doctor and test after test. And then one day, I visited a neurologist and he said to me, "Tina, this is anxiety." And then he said, "I want you to try yoga." That was the last thing I wanted to hear. I felt so dismissed. And besides that, how is downward facing dog going to make me feel better? It didn't make sense. So I left there that day feeling hopeless, driving home with tears streaming down my face. And then I looked up and I asked for help. And I don't even know who I was asking. Maybe the universe, maybe God, maybe my higher self. I don't know. But at that moment, the clouds began to move in a way that I had never seen before. They parted, revealing this brightness that I felt. And in that moment, something inside of me shifted, not as a thought, not as an idea, but a knowing. Everything that I believed about life, about control, even about God, wasn't what I thought. Looking back now, that was my Atta moment. That was my now. And here's what I didn't understand at the time: that word sutra means thread, a thread that weaves teachings together, a thread that connects something deeper. And suddenly, the phrase I had joked about for years, "I'm hanging on by a thread," took on an entirely different meaning because I wasn't falling apart. I was holding on to something, but I couldn't see it yet. Eventually, I did find my way to a yoga class, and I remember laughing at the poses and wondering what I was even doing there. But at the end, something felt familiar, not new. But yoga didn't begin there. It didn't begin on the mat. It began in that moment in my car when everything I thought I knew started to fall away. A teacher once said something that stayed with me. What we do on the mat is a place to practice yoga. It is not the practice of yoga. Yoga begins when you feel anxiety rising and you choose to observe instead of react. When you notice your need to control and you gently let it go. When you catch yourself chasing what you think life should be and you come back to what it is. That's the practice. As I began studying the Yoga Sutras, each sutra, each thread felt like something I could follow, not just something to learn, but something to live. It was like an instruction manual on how to interface this mind body complex with the outside world. And what once felt like I was barely holding on became the realization that I was being guided thread by thread. So when the sutra says, now the teachings of yoga begin, it's not talking about a class, it's pointing to a moment. The moment you realize you can't keep living the way you've been living. The moment you stop searching outside of yourself and begin to look within. That is where yoga begins. I used to say I was just hanging on by a thread, and now I understand that thread never broke. It led me here. And this is the beginning of that journey, thread by thread. Now, if this resonated with you, I'll be continuing this journey, moving through the Yoga Sutras and sharing how these teachings show up in real life and how I have been able to transform my life from one of overwhelm and anxiety into a life that I can feel fulfilled, happy, and a life that I love. You're welcome to follow along. And if you've ever felt like you were just hanging on by a thread, maybe that thread led you here. I'll see you in the next one.